Welcome to Between Product and Partnerships, a podcast focused on bringing together product, partnership, and engineering leaders to discuss how to build, support, and scale SaaS ecosystems. This podcast is presented by Pandium, an integration platform for building native integrations.
Hi, everyone, and thanks for listening to our podcast, Between Product and Partnerships, where we talk about the challenges and what it takes to build integrations, tech partnerships, and SaaS platforms. Today, we are so excited to have Jacqueline Karlin on the podcast. She's held product leadership roles at companies like Amazon, Expedia, WhatsApp, PayPal, etc. And I am super stoked to talk to her today. Jacqueline, do you want to give the audience a little bit about your background, and then we could dive in?
Yeah, well, thank you for having me. I'm very excited to be here, Christina. My background is really thinking through what new products we need to bring to market and working backwards from customers. And I'm also a very mission-driven person. So when I look at a role that I'm getting or what I'm doing next, I want to make sure that I'm solving a real problem. And so that has been my career, and especially around inclusion. So for financial inclusion, for consumers, for small businesses. And then I wanted to learn how to take a new technology to the world. So I did a stunt at Alexa, which was, I learned a lot. And then I went back into the commerce world and payment world. So yeah, that's my background. And now we're heading into a new version of commerce, and I'm very excited about that, which is agentic commerce. And so that's a little bit about me. I'm also from Brazil, and I currently live in Austin, Texas.
Awesome. Thank you for that. And you've gotten to work with some really awesome companies. And looking at your background, it's really large companies, but also a wide breadth. What about the roles that you had at these various places was compelling to you? I know you said you want to solve problems, but we have a lot of folks on the pod that or listen to the pod that are maybe junior PMs or wanting to get into products. So it's also interesting for them to hear from someone who has as much experience as you do.
Yeah, and I think the life mission and the purpose is what led me. Looking back at my career, I didn't trace it in that way. I'm going to work for this company, and I'm going to build this specific product. It was more working in Brazil. I found that I was creating products, financial products that were charging 20% interest rate from poor Brazilians a month. And that didn't feel like a good thing. I was building something that would enable people to stay in debt. And today we have Nubank, which is a great solution in Brazil, and you have Pix and UPI and a lot of different financial products for that class. But when I was there, I was very junior. I didn't really have the solution or what I wanted to do. So I came to the US. I went to MIT to get my MBA, but with that mission on how can I contribute better to the world than charging 20% interest rates a month of poor people. And from there, I got an internship at Amazon in their lending team. And that for me was the start of I actually can do products that impact at large scale businesses and people for good. So we at the time, small businesses were trying to start selling on Amazon, but they were e-commerce. Banks didn't know how to lend to small businesses, and there was a small team trying to figure out if we could lend to them within Amazon and actually give them the working capital to grow in the marketplace. And again, the mission was, how can I help the small business? And so meeting with the small businesses, asking about their problems. How do they work? How do they buy inventory? How do they price it? How much does it cost to deliver? Again, real user problems. And then the flywheel that you're building against is if you actually help them grow, then they can hire more people, then can create more jobs. They sell more on Amazon, of course, or whatever marketplace they're selling in. And it's just a good economic flywheel that you're building. And so that was the start for me. And going for Amazon was from there to Alexa was more the curiosity on, okay, there's a new technology coming, and it does seem quite interesting. So I joined the small team to figure out how to take it to multiple countries. But at the end, I went back to how can we help people with commerce and salaries and money and financial inclusion. So
It's wild to think about a world where e-commerce is like new and nascent and banks don't know how to lend to it. I feel like also I work so much in e-com now, like we have a lot of e-commerce customers, but that part of the world just seems so mature and ubiquitous, right? But I remember when Amazon came out, like I remember when it was just books and when you could start buying like toilet paper online, and then when, to your point, like small businesses started selling, it wasn't just Amazon and Walmart. It's like a really cool transition. And even now seeing like social media based selling, like looking at TikTok shop and Instagram, and those are like really micro businesses, like could be one person type of business. And I love how that democratizes the economy a little bit. That's a whole nother podcast, but I do find it to be really interesting also as someone who's an elder millennial and like is not on TikTok very much. I love that it's like a new channel for folks. I'm curious. I know that, trying to find real user problems to then tie back to business value is like really core to your ethos. Do you have any anecdotes or like any memories of, hey, I was talking to a business or a potential user and something just like struck you and you were like, oh, wow, I hadn't thought about that. Or maybe this is a great idea to bring forward. I'm just curious, like, because you've obviously done a lot of this stuff and I think the audience would like to hear it.
yeah, I think I can go back to the small business part because there is a big shift happening now in exactly there with agentic commerce. Um, so when talking with these small businesses and just thinking, if you're very small, how do you prepare for Black Friday or how do you prepare for Prime Day? And if the loan that you're getting is a 12-month installment, you actually need to plan that out so that you actually have inventory to be able to do a deal on Black Friday. And so a lot of the work back then was, okay, we need to keep you stable in capital, but wouldn't it be great if these small businesses could actually enjoy Black Friday as a
Hmm.
business and be relevant and have enough products to sell with enough margin? And so rethinking through the loan structure for the small businesses came from a conversation. I don't have inventory for it. And even if I get it now, I don't have it won't arrive on time
Hmm.
because I can't pay for it to come by plane. It needs to come by boat for me to be able to have the right margins. And so, and these insights only come by talking with customers. So for those that are starting in product, um, I try to follow this rule to try and talk with at least 12 customers every cycle, every quarter. And that's like a baseline so that you can hear from them. What are the new problems they have? And um, how are they using your product and how can you improve it?
Man, physical goods is like a whole different world to me. I've worked with a lot of companies that sells physical goods and brands and stuff, but like one of my good friends has a beauty brand and started from scratch, and just hearing some of her challenges just like this around lending and trying to make sure you have enough inventory but not too much inventory, and it just really interesting having, stuff stuck in a pallet in California and needing to get access to capital really quickly to be able to open that up for your next Sephora order. Just a totally different world than the world I operated, which is like zeros and ones all the way down. Um, with the small business lending, are you able to share like what sort of refinements you brought? Like, how did you change that program and what did success look like? How did you determine what success was going to be for those products?
Yeah, at that time, we started running a few tests around can we change the structure of the loans to help you for specific deal days and all of that. Um, but I think the main change that came over time is that banks started to learn how to underwrite to those folks because now we had enough data in the market, enough data, including from the experience that Amazon had, and they started playing around. And the marketplace of lending, I believe it still exists today. I haven't checked lately, but there was a marketplace where sellers could get loans directly from banks because now they knew how to underwrite to them. So I think those two evolutions are restructuring how a loan is for your need and as well as getting more people in the pool of offers of credit and working capital for these folks.
And I'm assuming this was all before like the Stripes of the world offered lending, because I know that's a huge line of business for them. Almost anyone I talk to now that runs like a D2C brand is using some that for something.
Yeah, this is old school, but it's how you start to solve problems, right? And yeah, today you have huge businesses doing this. You have
Hmm.
banks that are focused on e-commerce, and there's a lot of data how these businesses grow. And the risk back then was um, banks knew how to lend to brick and mortar. And if anything, there was a physical address, a physical store.
Hmm.
The inventory was there for collateral.
Yep.
When you go online, the liquidity of the inventory is so big that the banks just didn't know what to do with that.
Yeah,
Right.
well, and then we also have, as you know from Amazon, right, like distributed 3PLs and stuff now too. So inventory can be stuck in all different places. To your point, like collateralizing it is a little bit different when it's, maybe owned by you, but not physically in, your garage or in your physical brick and mortar store. Yeah, it's just wild to think about. Like that wasn't that long ago when you could not buy this stuff online, and you've been there for this like entire transition. So let's talk about Alexa, because that's also a super cool project. Take me back to when you joined the Alexa team. Like, what was the state of that product? What did it do? What excited you about it? And then let's talk about the expansion that you helped launch.
Yeah, sure. So I joined Alexa when in the small team driving international expansion. And also, it was really about Alexa everywhere. So working again backwards from the consumer, um, we the main product that we distributed Alexa through was Echoes at the time. But this team was then built to really think, okay, if a consumer already has, I don't know, a Bose, a Sony, a Sonos, you name the device maker, can we get them to interact with Alexa there? Because at the end, you want to be this assistant that's available for your consumer, right? And so um the job was really about, okay, what is the strategy to take Alexa into new countries, and especially from a third party device perspective. So what type of experiences do you need to build? And this folks that have done localization or internationalization of products, coming from a country where Amazon is a number one brand, where Echoes has already had so much success and investment in marketing, how do you start that in a country where maybe Amazon is not a top brand? Alexa has never been heard about. And so that strategy of taking it into third party devices is really about um, distribution, and actually the goal of getting Alexa to be your assistant in and what I'm sharing here is a little old. I'm not a lot of this has obviously evolved over time, but then the role was, okay, if we're taking this to France, for example, what are the music service providers that a French consumer uses? Is it Amazon Music? Is it Spotify? Is it Pandora? And then you start, okay, I actually need to get Deezer in, and these, which is what the French at the time, again, I don't know the latest
Hmm.
on Deezer, but at the time that was a big service music provider. And so if your goal is that your consumer is then saying, Alexa, play music, the most seamless experience for that consumer is that their own music provider is already available in Alexa for her to be able to deliver that experience to you. And then also thinking through the knowledge of the location you're going to. If you're launching, again, I'll pick France or Italy.
Hmm.
You want to make sure that if someone asks a question, it knows the right answer. And so, who is the president, or who is, I don't know, what is the mayor of the city? So you need to make sure that you get all the localization in place and become relevant to that consumer.
How I mean, just as you're describing this, there's so many inputs, right? It's not just like, oh, the Alexa um, application needs to play on this other kind of device. It's also, as you said, like there's so many things that go into this. How did you start even thinking about that? Like, did it start with like, hey, we want Alexa to be in France? like, then what? Like, where was it just like, go talk to some people in France? Like, how did you start to formulate a plan that then led to this
Yeah,
global
so
rollout?
it's a bigger team, right?
Yeah, yeah.
And each one would contribute with their perspective. My role at the time was really thinking through the strategy from a third party device angle and contributing to the broader, okay, what is the next language? What is the next country? But I think the playbook is one that, regardless of Alexa, is really looking at, okay, what is the addressable market in this country I'm going to? What is culturally appropriate to the consumer, right? And especially when you talk about AI, there's all the privacy challenges,
Mhm.
there's all of those questions there. So you work backwards from that. And then you, of course, talk with your data science team, your engineering team on what is easier to get out that still delivers value to the
Mhm.
consumer. Look at what you have success in other countries. And so, like timers and alarms, music, those are the basic. And then we would adapt whatever was needed that we believe was needed for that first launch.
Were there any surprises there? Like, hey, people in XYZ country like really don't want to use timers or something. And we are an Alexa household. I use timers, conversions, and music, as you said, and like to listen to the news. It's like I am your prototypical user. But I wonder if there's like some cultural things or some hardware that does something really well that you guys already did, or yeah, if there was any like after the fact sort of surprises.
I think the main domains were a no-brainer. Like we did do a
Hmm.
lot of research before because this is very expensive. We didn't have Gen AI at the time.
Hmm.
So to build all of this, it required a lot of investment. Even what, how do you tone the utterance into the language that the natural language processing is tuned to that environment and that language and all of that. Um, so I think the main surprise came actually from the amount of value we got from the no code solutions that we created and the skills, where we found that people started engaging and creating their own experiences and their own routines that then piqued engagement over time. And so when you think about this is from a technology standpoint, there's all the consumer facing, what is the device, what's the experience, but there's a beauty in creating no code experiences where people can add to your product. And yes, you'll have a lot of fancy developers coming in, but we also had kids coming in and playing around with creating fun interactions with Alexa, and that created a lot of interesting use cases and increased user engagement. I have a friend that taught Alexa how to sing with his grandmother. And there are people that also make jokes on like getting Alexa to answer the wrong thing because they know that it's going to annoy their parents, and
Mm.
so so there's a lot of jokes as well that we've seen. And so yeah, like getting the wrong capital to Brazil. If you say it's Buenos Aires, my parents will probably not like that and start arguing back with Alexa. And even though we created the right knowledge in the domain, the user can then add to their own personal device and play around with it, right? And so those nuggets were always fun to see. And I think that that's a big strategy that I've tried to apply on how do you make it easy for people to add to your product without having to know how to code.
And as a consumer product, like being able to play a little bit, I think is fun. Do any of those jokes or any of that stuff that the kids did stand out? I'm curious. I'm looking maybe for ways to like troll my husband now.
Yeah, I think I've heard a lot of success on the fart skill. That's a funny one, and kids just love getting Alexa to play and farting all the time, and that then increases engagement of the household and even into jokes and so that's the yeah. There's all those funny use cases. Like, who would imagine when you're building all of this that such a skill, teaching Alexa how to fart would create more engagement. But if you talk with parents, they get why, and that's a fun one.
Yes, I'm sure some parents on our team wanna make sure that that does not make it into their Alexa because 'cause it'll be popping off constantly. We have a lot of parents on the team.
Yeah.
Um, let's talk a little bit about WhatsApp because
Oh,
that's
yeah.
another cool sort of commerce use case. Maybe if you wanna share what you were doing there, we could dive in just a little
Yeah.
bit.
So what I did there was basically what happened with WhatsApp is, and a lot of people don't know this, is one of the most used apps in the world. And a lot of small businesses started interacting with their consumers, especially India and Brazil. And this is all available publicly. You guys should try it out. They're on their website. Um, Consumers started reaching out to their businesses through WhatsApp, and businesses started sending information to the consumer. So let's say if you're trying to sell pizza, you would send a picture of your menu to your consumer. And then the consumer answers, okay, I want this pizza. I don't know. I want a margarita pizza. And then the business would then send a link for you to go elsewhere to make payments. And then the small business has actually 10 consumers talking with them where they can't remember, did I send the menu? Did they
Mhm.
actually pay me? Did I deliver what I promised to that consumer? And so managing the business from the business side started becoming very hard. And again, I'm saying these examples because we're working backwards from the problem that we're trying to solve. We found that people were engaging through WhatsApp to buy and sell, and it wasn't working. It was
Mhm.
very hard. And so what tools can you build to make that happen? And I do recommend people look at all the initiatives around conversational commerce, because that's also a lot of the baseline around agentic commerce that's coming, right? Which is within a chat, you talk to a business and you get what you want, and you pay right within the chat.
So I guess what did you guys build with WhatsApp? Like, how did you help solve that problem?
Yeah, I was mostly responsible for the operation side there. And so how do you support um, the consumers in India and the small businesses setting up shop?
Mhm.
Sorry, not the consumers, the businesses setting up shop in those tools, and how do you put the ability to pay and when they need any help in managing their stores and all of that.
Got it. You've mentioned agentic commerce a few times. How do you see, well, maybe if you can define in your own words, what is agentic commerce? How is it different than conversational commerce? And maybe just your own opinion about like where you see that going in the next, let's say 12 months. I feel like saying 5 years is like too much.
Yeah, I'd say, well, agentic commerce is happening now, in the sense that there's a lot of movement towards it and a lot of announcements have already come. So, from my former team at PayPal, ability to pay in perplexity, the folks at Expedia that are now building with OpenAI, the folks from DoorDash, Uber, all of this is so that you can just request to ChatGPT, Perplexity, Gemini, you pick the agent, Claude, the ability to then go and find the item and pay for it right within the chat. So this is both what I was describing with Alexa, where Alexa's then invoking in a Spotify or um, or Deezer or whoever it is to provide you with music, as well as in WhatsApp where you have the conversation with the business in a chat. It's a different interface than you have when you're doing web um, shopping, or when you're on TikTok or Instagram, just seeing that content coming your way and discovering through there. I don't think we're saying that all the other channels are dead. There's just a new way that's emerging, that is when the consumer is delegating a task to their agent of choice. And um, especially when uh, uh, it's a task that you've done multiple times before. So order me at Uber to the airport from my house to the airport. I've done that a few times. So for the first time I do it, I would likely want the agent to say, is this the route?
Hmm.
Is this the type of car? Is this the form of payment you're using? But if it's the 10th time I'm doing that, just order it and tell me when it's arriving, right?
Yeah, yeah. I think that's a great example, anytime there's like patterns, right, that it can recognize, I think it's going to be better than like find me a gift for XYZ. It's like that's a very open-ended question. Are there any tools with the agentic commerce that you're like particularly impressed with today? Like anything that you always go to? This is a selfish question too. I want to play with it. I'm just curious since you're deep in it.
I think each one of them have a different flavor. So we see OpenAI with all the operator front, and there's a lot coming out there. Um, I really like Perplexity as well with Shopping and Pro. I think the thing that drives me more towards Perplexity a little bit is the explainability, because I actually can see Perplexity engaging with third parties and where that data is
Hmm.
coming from, and I can understand more what it's doing. Um, and I think Claude as well is trying to go in that direction. Um, and so I like when AI is explainable, tangible. I don't like when it's a black box. And so especially when you talk about commerce and you're talking about people's money, it's very important to explain what you're doing, make sure that the person that's buying is comfortable. And voice commerce, by the way, is not new. You can shop on Alexa for years. You can shop with Google, right? So there's
Hmm.
a lot of, but there are issues with those implementations that around trust. But and it's really about the amount of investment that you have to do to get to that point. And with Gen AI, the investment is significantly lower.
Hmm.
And so the experiences will become clearer, better, cheaper to manage as a business, right? If you're building AI and agentic commerce today, it's a very different ball game than it used to be. So
Makes sense. So I think we're coming up on time, although we could talk about this stuff forever, I'm sure. And I wanted to ask, just in closing, we have a lot of PMs that listen to this, a lot of junior PMs. What is one practice or tip that you think folks can adopt to connect better with their own why or the why of the company that they're working for?
yeah, I think first of all, know your own why. Because me getting the job at Amazon Lending had to do with my own why. Me going to Alexa had to do with my own curiosity of becoming a better technologist on taking a new technology to the world. Of course, there's a cool factor to it, but that was not the motivator. And then WhatsApp, it's about helping small businesses and there's a financial inclusion and growth there, right? And so every time working backwards from actually taking the time to understand internally what moves you, and then when you get an opportunity, first of all, chase the opportunity that resonates with that. And when you get it, evaluate, and you will shape that there. And when you're in there, make sure you walk backwards from your customer. And there are always a lot of opinions. And when you're in 0 to 1, you rely much more on your customer input. And a lot of people say that data is key, but there's a little bit of instinct when you're building something new. But if you don't believe that it's going to solve a real problem, you just want to do it because it's cool, that's probably not the right solution.
I love that. Walking back from your customer. I think there's a lot of trust that goes into that too. But I think that even data is important. And obviously, if there's overwhelming data telling you the opposite of what your vibes are telling you, like maybe reevaluate. But I think it's hard to go wrong if you have a sample set of customers and they're all kind of telling you the same thing. Like there's something really compelling about being able to solve that problem. And you almost can't make a mistake if you're doing that. Well, I
I think
think, oh,
one
good.
thing more just to add there,
Yeah.
I think that it is not easy to innovate. And if you don't have conviction and you don't operate, I think there's one more thing here. Like there's a scientific method of you have a hypothesis and you're working towards that. So when you're coming to talk to your customer, you're working with that hypothesis. And you need to fail fast on your hypothesis as well and pivot, right? You can't relentlessly just keep it the way it is because you believe. And I always tell my PMs that if you haven't really shared your hypothesis with a broad set of people that A, you believe are smarter than you or have a different opinion than you you haven't hardened your hypothesis enough even to bring it to me to review as your leader. So make sure your hypothesis is not one person's opinion. It is a collective opinion already. And that's how you build great products.
I agree. Don't be dogmatic. No reason to do that. Well, I think we are just coming up on time. This has been super duper fun. I think you and I could talk about this stuff forever. If folks want to follow you and see more of you and your speaking engagements and things of that nature, where can they find you?
LinkedIn. I'm quite present on LinkedIn and happy to interact there. And thank you so much for having me. I had a lot of fun here, and yeah, looking forward to keeping in touch.
Yes, absolutely. We will drop your LinkedIn with this episode. And to our audience, thanks again for hanging out with us for a few minutes as we talk about all things partnerships and product. If you want more, you just need more and more stuff about partnerships and products, you can go to pandium.com, check out the rest of our podcasts, blogs, worksheets, all the great stuff. Jacqueline, thank you again for spending some time with us this afternoon. And I will see you out there.
Thank you.
Thanks for listening. If you enjoyed our content, subscribe to our channel and give us a thumbs up. For more content on tech partnerships, integrations, and APIs, check out our articles, ebooks, and other resources in the description or visit Pandium's website.